If leadership is so important, if it's so vital to everything that we count on, why is it so difficult? Why is it so hard to become a leader? Why do we come up with every excuse we can think of to say, she should be a leader, he should be a leader, but not me? One reason is this. In order to be a leader, you must be able to paint a picture of where you want to go. You must be able to see the end before you begin the journey. That doesn't mean you have to know how to get there. It doesn't mean you know how to do every one of the jobs and every one of the steps and every single thing between here and there. What it does mean is that you have to claim it. You have to claim where you are headed. So my friend Leanne, who runs a fashion house called Vote, her vision is to be able to be a successful purveyor of vegan fashion. She has this deep felt need to create beauty without killing animals. She understands what that could look like when she succeeds. She doesn't know exactly how to get there, but she's able to enroll other people in where she's going because she can paint a picture of what it looks like at the other side. The Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. is famous for one of the greatest speeches ever given. And if you think about what that speech is about, it's about painting a picture of where we need to go. Now, a minute ago I said this was hard, but all of us are good at dreaming. All of us carry around pictures of alternative futures. No, the problem is this. The problem is once you say it out loud, you have to deal with the fact that it might not work. You have to deal with the fact that it probably won't work. And we're trained not to want to do that. We're trained not to speak up and say, I want to go over there, and I'm going to be responsible for getting us over there, and no one's ever been over there, and I'm not exactly sure how to get over there. Let's go. That's hard. So we're going to go in acknowledging that it's hard, that it's difficult, that the difficult work of leadership begins with understanding that our responsibility, whether we're a social entrepreneur, whether we're running a nonprofit, whether we're trying to build a business, it begins with this ability to describe a future, a place where we want to go. So now we're up to the third thing about leadership. The first thing was leadership is not management. The second thing is that leadership is difficult because it might not work. But you're going to do it anyway because it's important. Which leads to the third thing, which is a surprise. Culture. The culture of the organization you build changes everything. Culture defeats strategy. Culture defeats tactics. Culture is at the heart of whether you're going to get to where you want to go or not. And too many leaders fall into a trap. The trap is simple to describe. You are so focused on survival, on getting the job done, on moving forward, that you sacrifice culture. You know what? We get the culture we deserve. If you have a bully working for you, and you say, well, yeah, he's a bully, but he can really get the job done, you're getting exactly what you deserve. If you have people who you can't possibly figure out how to move around because the cost in the short run is too high, even though those people are undermining who you are and what you believe in, you will pay the price every single day. We get the culture we deserve. There's a company in India called 1298. They are an ambulance company. In Mumbai, when they started, there were only 3 ambulances in the entire city. A city the size of New York with 3 ambulances. They started an ambulance company with the ethos that whether you were rich or poor, you deserved to get to a hospital before you died. And so if you're poor and you get in the ambulance, you don't pay a penny. And if you're wealthy and you get in the ambulance, you pay what's appropriate. So the question you might ask is, why is it called 1298? Why isn't it called 911? Why isn't it the number you ought to dial to get the ambulance is 911? Because people in Mumbai watch TV. They know that in the rest of the world, it's called 911. Why would you build an ambulance company and call it 1298? And the answer is because someone at the phone company wanted a bribe in order to give them 911. And they made the decision the very first day, even though people said, people are going to die because you picked a lousy number. They said, we're not the kind of organization that pays a bribe even when it's important. Because after all, no one pays a bribe when it's not important. You always pay bribes only when it's important. So by establishing on that first day, when there are only a couple people in the room, we're not the kind of organization that does things like that. You are building the organization that's going to get you to where you need to go. And so every day, you're going to have to wrestle with this. You're going to have to wrestle with which corners do you cut and what kind of culture do you build. Is this a place where people work 20 hours a day, every day until they burn out? Is it a place where it's okay to yell in a meeting? Is it a place where there are even meetings? These are all choices available to you. And establishing this culture will drive almost everything that you do going forward. One of the most important organizations in the US of the last 30 years in terms of health is a political group called ACT UP. ACT UP was started by an activist named Larry Kramer, also a playwright. Larry Kramer was not happy with the way the gay men's health crisis was addressing the issue of AIDS. He went and he gave a speech. There were 300 people in the room, and he described a vision of where he wanted to lead. And at the end of that speech, a bunch of people came together and said, let's do this thing. The thing that's fascinating about ACT UP is they never registered as a 501(c) charity. They never, in fact, registered at all. They didn't say, you're in charge, you're a senior vice president, you're the next vice president. It was a horizontal organization. It was impromptu from the first day. As a result of building this culture, there are a whole bunch of things ACT UP can't do. ACT UP doesn't have a fancy headquarters building or lobbyists or is organized for a long haul, drip, drip, drip approach to making change. But because it was a horizontal, take responsibility for your actions, act up, make a ruckus, let's go fast because people are dying sort of culture, that's exactly what they did. So these are the choices that are before you, which is as the leader, you don't get to say, well, we're doing it this way because it's always been done this way. You need to say, we're doing it this way because this is the way that's going to get us to where we need to go. Welcome to the internet. The internet seems to make all things possible. The internet says, oh, you have a $149 Chromebook. You are now connected by Wi-Fi, which you get for free at Starbucks, to 2 billion people. You want to make a video? Make a video. You want to sing a song? Sing a song. You want to publish something and have it reach 100 million people? Go ahead. So it makes it easier to dream. It makes it easier to imagine how, without a building, a fleet of cars, a team of people, how we could change the culture. But it's also a safe place to hide. Because what leaders understand is that we can't have everything. You can't say this, and this. There are trade-offs. If you're going to spend time and focus on this, you're not going to be spending time and focus on that, are you? And so part of your job as a leader is to go beyond the dream to the strategy. The strategy, think about if you've ever played chess. The first few moves are pretty easy, you memorize them. The last few moves are pretty easy because they're obvious, or else you lost. But the middle moves, those are really challenging. Should you sacrifice this knight? Because if you sacrifice the knight, you won't be able to use it 7 moves later to kill the bishop. But if you don't sacrifice the knight, you won't be able to move the queen out of position. You have to make choices. That's what leaders do. Managers, they get instructions. They don't have to make choices. Managers comply or get their people to comply. But leaders, your job, after you've painted the picture, is to say, I don't know exactly how to get there, but I do know we're going to do this and not that. I do know that there's a trade-off here. We can't simultaneously guarantee that every T is crossed and every I is dotted and be fast and break things. Which is it? Right? It goes back to this idea of the culture that you're going to build. So when someone turns to you and says, Mr. Social Entrepreneur, Ms. Nonprofit Leader, what do we do now? You need to be able to describe not the tactics, not the step-by-step, that's for your people in conjunction with you, but the strategy. Have you thought deeply about what's on offer? Why will people change? That, as Michael Schrage has said, the most effective, important organizations in the world exist to change people. That's why you're here. So now you've got to figure out what has to happen before the thing that has to happen, before the thing that has to happen, so change occurs. And we need to be naked enough to failure, exposed enough to be able to say, and that's not going to work for everybody. And that's not going to change everybody. And that's not going to give us a platform that lasts forever, for all time, for everybody. But it will get us to the place we need to go. We need to say these steps out loud. We need to be able to say to our team, I'm not willing to change the picture, not willing to change that change we're trying to make, but I'm happy to change the strategy. Here's my strategy. I think we should be on this platform, not that platform. I think we should tell this story, not that story. Tell me what's wrong with my strategy. Let's work together to get there. But deep down, baked into the organization, there needs to be a point of view. What are you willing to stake this effort on? What do you believe? Say it out loud.